Welcome to our beautiful building. I'm just the front man because the students are going to do most of the talking. I was very taken with the area with the big ex-car factory, the Akzo Nobel paint plant, indoor karting place and so on. Near the canal, all shouting, I thought I heard it. This is from an email from a while ago. I want to be Brussels' equivalent of the Brooklyn Naval Yard. A little bit trendy but properly, revivingly industrial, hosting new metropolitan makers alongside general city-serving workshop-type production and repair, and more, all helped along as needed by assorted government actions and able to cohabit with a richer, mostly regular mundane, mix of industrial uses that are already there, handling waste, supporting construction, repairing and servicing, storing and sorting things. The station in that place had a lovely name, where we got off the train for our romantic summer walk, just after all those rail sidings with the longer and lyrical name that sounds like glaciers in the fjords. And all at the end of that wonderful old street. If only people knew, through Averna, and all of it so close to the city centre. A few minutes on the train, and a realistic cycle ride away. Superb! And so all that email got shortened to Buda Brooklyn. This place, like few others, has the potential, we believe, to achieve what the Brooklyn Naval Yard has. Industrial growth in the city, in a place from which it had before retreated. Industry combining the traditional, sometimes rough and clumsy, with a more fashionable, sparked, maker scene or metropolitan spirited, burgeoning 2,000 jobs generated so far in production and related industries in that place, in a former shipyard. Now they are moving beyond reuse of old buildings to construction of new. As at an earlier wonderful but also short workshop, we come as outsiders. Do not shoot us, we are innocent. We may say the wrong things insensitively, so forgive us for being inadvertently rude about the Dutch-style housing estate-like suburb with landscape advancing this way from the north, and the bewildering neglect of this remarkable place, its buildings and its life. Forgive us for being baffled by why the public transport services to here are so bad, and that there is nearly nowhere to get a snack and a drink, no corner shop, and no bench to sit on, not one. This place, Buda, 10 minutes train ride away from the centre of one of Europe's most diverse and metropolitan cities, and by the way, a really nice city. This place with wonderful assets, this place Buda that made us say, wow, this is really something when we first arrived and explored. This place is a gift, a seriously lucky find. So a few little mini thoughts from me before others join in, the students. Increasingly being argued, luckily, and we all believe it strongly, a good city has industry, not pushed away elsewhere, not invisible, but boldly abutting and embedded, visible, available, part of the whole dynamic. Goodbye Charter of Athens, goodbye obsessions of the last century. This is a new century and want our city with maximum mix, with space for all entrepreneurialism, for innovation, for making and servicing, for a full diversity of jobs, for incubating new parts of our European economy in the places where the talent and the skill clusters. This is urban. The buildings meet the street. We can see what they are. We can get here on the train, the tram, the bus, the bike, on foot. It is intense. It doesn't have too many trees and shrubs. That's good. It's the future we want. Buda is not nothing. Its economy and its buildings, while bruised and embattled, are to be valued. If I had my way, for example, I would rate the urban block we are in amongst right now in this amazing building, this colossal, multi-owner, incrementally developed hybrid building up there with Diocletian's palace in Split and such like things. I'm not joking. This place needs spirited action, careful incremental intervention. It really needs help. This place can become more like it is. It can assert itself, push outwards, overlap beyond itself, integrate, not be nibbled away or worse. We were shown drawings of worse yesterday, of sweeping change, of business parkification, suburbanization, but we think that's a shame. This place needs to be enthused, needs to become welcoming. So we've structured the rest of this presentation around a few fragments we have to say, so it was easy to organize. We say times 20. So over to the students for that. But actually, for the first one, I shall pretend to be a student. This first one. And so just, there's just some magic with the scissors. Just to say, that's what we mean. I know Buda isn't actually a precise place, and actually it's part of the places around, so you can kind of make it up. But we just wanted to cut out where we think this is the extent of something that can call itself something and can try to push outwards and say, we are this place and we are principally industrial. And that's what felt like broadly the extent of that. And then we thought it was interesting to say it has a twin, and it's whatever that's called, towards the city. And those two twins go together, and they are this very large chunk of industry of two very different types. When they overlap, they're very different. And then just quickly to say what's interesting, and you would want them to feel a sense of ownership and interconnectedness with this place that isn't really as strong as you would like. So Vilvoorde and the place over the other side of the canal, I don't know what it's called, and Mechelen, and that amazing strip-based, wanting to be a high street place that we explored in the summer, and then this extraordinary village-like, low-key high street structure, and all of those last two interconnecting with one of the most wonderful pieces of urban structure in Europe, and of course that dovetailing with the centre of Brussels. So that's where we see this powerful little piece. I shall stop pretending to be a student now.
So our story vastly introduce you what we mean by re-establishing Buda as a place. It's how can this place become part of the aspirations of many businesses and assorted lively people? How could this place be promoted in a subtle, viral way, building a new enthusiasm, and how can it be represented? Buda is it's an interesting area. It's an area that is of in social decline. It's a place that currently has negative connotations, but we believe that it is something to be celebrated. And I think as soon as you sort of step off the train, off public transport, that you should feel welcomed. The area itself is placed at the heart of a valley, and so quite often you perceive it from ground level as well as elevated level, whether that be on higher terrain or on a motorway or elevated highways. So how can we see Buda in a different way, in a more positive way? Here's an example of a project by Gort Scott in London, promoting the industrial activity, and we believe that this could be interpreted in Buda as a way of promoting the things that could potentially be manufactured in this area.
So the next chunk is kind of, as it says, celebrating the life of Buddha, so promoting and encouraging events, which is essentially developing a program of events for Buddha, which involves evolving and creating new events that we've put into the existing event programs of the surrounding regions, as well as creating a program for the area itself. So for instance, the first one is an example of the London Triathlon. Buddha has the kind of places that could support this kind of event. Why doesn't it already? It's something that you could bring to it, something quite active and fun. The next one is the Games Festival that already occurs, and that's an example of, for instance, weaving Buddha back into the wider program. So if there's a program of events, you can pinpoint different events around the area. They don't all need to be in one location. They can be spread out across the city to help everywhere. Next is the Festival Canal. So again, a series of events that take place along a canal. You can kind of extend that further along to the area around Buda because it has the facilities to be able to hold this, to be able to support it. And then moving on to something as interesting and simple as a food market, something that could happen, say, weekly or monthly or yearly somewhere, because there are these kind of empty, vacant lots, these places that could support quite large-scale events, something you might not be able to find as easily or cheaply in, say, the centre of Brussels, something you can find and support in Buda. The part of weaving these events into Buda is actually making small upgrades and changes to the existing assets and making them proud, because they do have something beautiful here, and that should be celebrated. So part of that is potentially mapping vacant space through, say, a website or an app so that you can help people find the space to use, essentially kind of like a letting agent for the area, something that people can go to. They can find, oh, I need to start something, I need to find a place where I can occupy, and this is something you can use to potentially find that. Which leads on to incorporating slack space into this, potentially making use of space that isn't made use of currently, and bringing it back into use in the urban realm. So for instance, a park or something similar, making use of these unloved spaces. But these should also these things should also extend to the community. They should also benefit the community itself. So for instance, this is in Scotland, the idea of a community bike workshop, something where people donate time to help other people learn skills. So skills workshops, for instance. And this is promoting existing uses. So there is actually quite a lot of capacity. You can do quite a lot in the area already. And with minor changes, you can make people see that, because they might not be aware that they can run kilometers along this or cycle in this area, but it is beautiful, and if they were suddenly made aware of it, they would use it. And going still further, you can encourage activities, in particular along the canal. So for instance, rowing and fishing, you can make people see this as a recreation space, for instance. And again, part of this is opening up access to industry. So for instance, there are many businesses that are quite proud, and they do amazing things in this area, but you don't necessarily see what they're doing or how they're doing that. So for instance, opening up, say, an importer or exporter of fake flowers, you can let the public in, they can see what is there or available, they can suddenly understand what their business is about, and they can get all up and close and personal with it.
That's real, there is
that
one.
does exist.
Yeah.
In Buda.
So, Ponte Buda, that's fine. I think we see this area, especially just over there, as an opportunity for exploiting what we believe is a landmark here. It seems like quite an obvious asset to host a series of activities that we've tried to outline or propose as almost like pilot projects. So a cafe to service not only just the pedestrians that we would hope to attract to the area, but to the workers in sort of the adjacent industrial buildings also. Here we see an opportunity for celebrating openness. So despite this area being very sort of heavily concentrated in industrial space, you do get these moments of clarity. What would happen if we placed a bench by the canal or a series of viewpoints that you could start to look over and admire the space and the way that it has organically grown, something that you can't quite do when you're in it. Again, this is the idea of feeding the daytime population, so trying to make sort of small, hopefully inexpensive interventions that would be appreciated by the people who work here, as well as the people who would hopefully become attracted to the area as well. Reimagining the space, and facades are a very important thing, and for these to engage with the public and vice versa, a simple intervention like this could go a long way. So here, investing sort of small, low-cost investments in the public realm. We would see sort of these come together, these small actions that could help this place refresh, re-enter the consciousness, and this time in a very positive way for the area.
So there are many special things in Buda. This is a map of the things we found special and that are important to Buda, landmarks that should be valued, such as powerful industrial facades that have a public presence, impressive structures, and the way buildings have been adapted and customised.
We think that strategies are needed to protect Buda's heritage. It's not just for its historical or aesthetics values, but its social and cultural associations within the community. There are success stories of communities saving their lucky finds. South Bank and their skate park, Dalston Lane and their dilapidated street scene, giving new life to this pub and making it as part of the museum, or how this jewellers withstand against development, or celebrating what happened here and what the place is associated with. Or why couldn't Buda celebrate their lucky finds? Or turning this pipe archway into something special, Buda's triumphant arch. An example of communities doing the same, the people of High Wycombe created this arch from chairs, their primary industry. What could Buda make their arch from?
Paint cans.
Or associating landmarks back to Buda with a name. Why not turn something common like these railway arches and let artists turn them into something special? We think the intimacy between industry and residential should be celebrated, from almost overlapping of the two, delicate weave, or varying layers. Example of this working well, residential industry living coherently in Pullen's Yard.
We think that you should keep an open door to industry. This is a condition that we found when we went for a walk and we really liked. We enjoyed looking into factories and the way that factories opened up onto the street and the presence of the industry on the high street. We think that it could be taken further by inviting public events into factories or by inserting public programs and public infrastructure into the factories. We think that you should plant myths that change perceptions of what is already here. A derelict building could become a witch's cottage. A grassy mound could become Mount Buda. And as the stories grow and become exaggerated, they spread within the community. This happened in London, where a toxic spoil heap is nicknamed Beckton Alps, and then the myth becomes realised when it becomes an artificial ski slope. In Surbiton, an artist invented the ancient guild of freshwater sardine fishing, which then sparked a festival in its name and has since become a source of local pride. In Barking, artists designed an ancient folly, which was built in 2010 by local bricklayers and has since become part of Barking's heritage, even making its way onto the local website. Similar interventions in Buda can make what's already here become monumental.
We think more should be made of Buda's already existing and well-functioning transport links. There's an awful lot of infrastructure in the area, heavy infrastructure, lots of layers, a lot of it well-functioning and used. However, it does create a lot of segregation for the communities, the spaces, the areas. With this infrastructure causing this severance, you get these valleys, these gaps, pauses that you can't cross. It makes east-west travel very difficult. So although there's a good north-south cross, although there's a reduced service, which does affect it, there's this separation that you can't cross. We think that east-west link is really important for integrating this area into the rest of the community. Items like the Renault factory, with that really strong north-south link, crossing underneath it is something to pay attention to. You've got a bridge underneath. Why can that not be celebrated in a more important way? It's a key cross through one of the area's most iconic buildings. Integrating the village communities that were already there into this area would change the perception that Buda has, so of this negative aspect, previous occupations of the land. If people have access to it, they have a sense of pride of ownership that would change. The already existing transport structure, other than the north-south train, are limited. There's very few bus routes coming through, bus stops. The train station in Buda at the moment only has a train once per hour. We think that really needs to be addressed. What if there was a new bus route? What if it went round the whole community, linking all the existing village structures from the north, south, east and west? How would that change how people travel in the area? Would there need to be an address of how the station is used? What if there was a new tram structure and the possible routes it could take? With so many segregated communities, it's something that isn't solved easily. With the north-south train, is it important to have the tram system coming close to it, or having a separation encouraging more movement by pedestrian walkways through the area? So having the tram come through the centre of Buda, or having it follow the peripheries, what are the benefits of both and the cons of both? What if there was a loop system for the tram? What if it went all the way up to Vilvoorde and then came back down to Brussels? So you have a circle line effect, as in London. There's a complete circle. It continues, it's endless, there's no reason why. And what about Buda Station? Should it move or should it stay? The ideas for both. Both have merit, but they both have issues as well. Moving the station further north, closer to the new development, the new residential areas, would enable an integration for that new residential area for the already existing outer areas. So you wouldn't create another isolated, separate community within an already separated, isolated area. It would also mean that the placement of the bridge across the canal would have an even more stronger link of a high street effect coming from the middle of Buda out towards the outer areas. However, if the station stays where it is, it gives the opportunity to increase the pride, the opportunity, the developments in the industrial part of Buda that everyone here has already shown you that we think should be celebrated. If it is moved, there definitely needs to be some compensation as to what happens, whether it's a new bus route, a new tram route. Areas like this, why don't they deserve a station compared to housing? We think the opportunity for a bridge across the canal is important. However, there are questions as to where it should be and how it should affect the area. The idea of a bridge with two lifts crossing a canal isn't ideal. We understand that there is a heavy infrastructure that's needed that has a very important economic value. However, why can't there be a ramp? Why isn't there another solution to just having lifts? Why can't this bridge become an icon in itself, like a larger one down the canalway? What if you use existing infrastructure? Rather than creating more confusion, more heavy infrastructure in an area that already has an abundance of it, what if you use what's already there and create a moving walkway across to allow for pedestrian and cycle traffic? It creates a spectacle as well as a practical use.
Okay, so Angela and I went for a walk around up through Buda and then to Vilvoorde and then across the bridge and back down to the large bridge down the road, and we figured that there were quite a few pinch points on our journey, and they would seem to be places where it was difficult to cross, or the signage wasn't clear, or the surfaces weren't coherent. So we feel that they should be coherent, that there should be one consistent orange colour for the cyclists or surface. We felt that to increase the foot traffic and the cycle traffic and the interest in the area, there could be small interventions such as a guide to the architecture or the running guide that includes the route that's already been proposed and the buildings. And we felt that there should be more signage and indication at the station to what's available in the area. Walked, we found that there were situations that it wasn't quite so clear what you were meant to do, but then in other locations, such as Vilvoorde, the provisions worked really well, and despite at the time not seeing very many cyclists, that they do exist. They are there at the station. There's lots of provisions for them to catch a train in Vilvoorde, and we think that better routes would be a vast improvement. In which case, we wondered whether you could put a cycle route just in the main residential reservation of the highway. It seems like quite a striking change, and it could be a big problem, but there's been a proposal for London, so if it can happen there, why can't it happen here? We also think there should be more of a cycleway along the canal. It seems like an ideal location for it. Whereas the main streets were traffic heavy, this could be more recreational. And then that's about it. Who's next? Oh, we felt that there was in looking at the cycle routes that existed, there seemed to be a massive gap between what was available for Brussels and what was available for Flanders, in that there's like quite a large grey area, and they do link in places, but they didn't have similar signage or similar numbering. Particularly in the east, it seemed like they do link, but it's not obvious what happens. Okay, so that's it.
So we think all assets in Buda are equal, and we picked out the different areas and the different industrial importance of it and the residential area, and picking out how we have like the residential and other civic importance, and trying to create industry and market that as well. And picking out mixed use. Also pick Buda's borders, edges and fractures are opportunities. So where we have big infrastructure cutting across the whole region, and the urban has to pick out along the river, and it creates this big tension and big divide. So we're trying to create better infrastructure so people can work with it and have better civic uses out of it. Strengthen and stitch assets together, as trying to use what this infrastructure we already have and trying to make the most of it and bring out the potential and think of the opportunities that we have. So looking at connecting it to the residential areas around and bringing the residential areas in to the industrial uses and making it a bit more mixed use and connecting east and west routes, rather than we have this very well connected north-south route with the possibility of moving the station further up, as brings out other questions, and also picking out areas for industrial uses to expand and further to the south, so it has the opportunity for it to grow and develop even further. Buda is ripe for the cultivation of many scales of industry. So that's picking out industrial uses at the moment and how it could develop, and it has so much space so it could actually grow even further. And picking out these connecting nodes and important areas to intensify action so specific uses can happen in these places and people feel there's an importance for people to go to. It's not just declining sort of areas picking up. These are city functions and industrial functions which can spill out into yards and have multiple uses, bring out civic places. And this is how that has happened in Black Horse Lane in London. And thinking about different parts and the buildings that we have at the moment and what they could be used as. And looking at a bigger scale. Think about bigger festivals that can come to Buda.
So we believe that this place of work can thrive and grow, and there are several areas that we want to give a particular character to. So this one, furthest south, we want this to be an area for new and emerging technologies, and we believe it has space to grow into this estate, which is currently quite run down. It also makes good use of the existing renovation, which has plenty of space as well for new businesses to expand into. We want to create an area for workshops in the centre, and we believe moving this train station further north is okay as long as you create a vibrant space and environment around it. This is an example of historic live-work spaces that we feel are vital to the prosperity of Buda. We believe that bringing housing to the area is beneficial, but it needs to live alongside industry as well. We think multi-industry, a good mix of industry, is useful, and it helps create a vibrant environment. And as mentioned, the station as a vibrant hub is vital in this example. Shoreditch High Street, the train station becomes a destination in itself and kind of defines the character of the area. We feel that, as has been mentioned, that the existing infrastructure is desperately underused, and we feel it could provide further infrastructure, but also kind of interesting secondary uses, such as crossing the canal. We believe the canal is potentially one of the most important aspects of Buda, and is robust enough to take large-scale civic events, and also to be able to incorporate housing and industry on it as well. We think that not only are there physical changes required, but there's also kind of economic changes that should happen. So we think we should introduce a new economic model for Buda, and this should involve working collectively. We believe that the industry should actively invest in the area, and that will create kind of confidence and certainty in the area, which should increase growth and further investment. And also, industry investing in the area should make employees stay in the area as well. So we feel that a physical, social and economic approach will create a stronger Buda.